G'day and welcome back, fellow YouTubers. That Blue Monkey here, and today I'm showing you another video on how to melt copper this time. So what I've got here is a few different variations of copper. Now there are three types. You got copper 1, 2 and 3, which is right here. Now I'll explain the differences of these if you ever want to sell copper just as pure scrap. Number 1 copper is copper that is pure copper. It's got no nothing on it, no contaminants on it. It is not an alloy, it's just straight up copper, which means there's no insulation on it. There are no other fittings like brass fittings or aluminium or anything like that. It's straight up copper, and a good note of thumb is that it should be no thinner than a 14 gauge. So anything of 14 gauge or above is considered to be number 1 copper, or if you want to put it another way, anything thicker than the lead of a pencil. So that'll be number 1 copper. That's the best copper you can get. Number 2 copper is something like this. Now I'm considering this to be number 1 copper, but just because of its size, I don't know whether they consider it a number 1 or a number 2 copper. Now number 2 copper is basically anything considered to be contaminated. So if you have copper with paint on it, it's number 2 copper. If you've got anything with like a brass fitting, like any piping that's got fittings or stuff on it, that's number 2 copper, and they don't sell for as much. Or if you have things like soldering attached to it, or you got other alloys in it, that's considered number 2 copper. Now this is all number 3 copper. The difference with this one is, if I show you here, this is pure copper. Now if this is any bigger, it'd be considered a grade 1 copper, but because it's wire, they consider it to be a number 3 copper. Now that's the same with all this. This, if it was big enough, they'd consider this a number 2 copper because it has the insulation. You can see how the colours variant. If you consider it to this, which is pure copper, these are all got coatings on them, except for this one, which is a little bit darker. That's because it's from wire. But anything that's a wire is considered to be grade number 3 copper. No matter how much you have, it's still graded as number 3 copper. So that's a good note to know if you're trying to sell any of it. So wires, number 3 copper. Anything with contamination or anything that's more than 14 gauge is number 2 copper, and anything above 14 gauge and solid, no contaminations or anything like that, is number 1 copper. Now that doesn't really apply to me too much because I'm going to melt it down. I have the forge or the furnace heating up at the moment, so once it's at temperature, I stuff some of this in there and melt it down. So until then, we'll just let it heat up and we'll come back to it. Alright, so should be ready to put some aluminium in now. I've just put some in. My camera stopped recording for some reason, I don't know why. But while I was waiting for it to heat up, I ended up having a boo-boo. This expanding foam, decided to go fill up a few gaps around the house, and just a little advice: if you ever got to use that, wear gloves. I got it on my hands and it's not easy to get off. Anyway, just thought you'd like to know that. Back to the task at hand. I've already got some copper in here. It started smoking a lot because it does have the insulated parts on it, so there's no smoke now, but it did smoke. Yeah, I've dropped the lid as well and cracked it, so gotta be careful. Yeah, that's actually pretty bad. Anyway, something's in there now. It's, oh boy, that's not too bad. Still got it covered, but you can see how it's all black now. It really did start making a lot of smoke. Bring this off. You can see all that. Black sugar there, so still heating up, but you can see it's sort of melting. And melt the camera too. So I'll come back when that's actually melted properly, and you'll see how it goes when we pour it into the mold over here. That mold there. I'll come back when that's done. Well, fuck. I guess my new furnace is not hot enough. It's just turning things grey. That's the little piece that I put in before. It's just turned grey, and yeah, that's all the yellow parts of it. It's all just did not work. And as you can see, that's steaming hot in there still. Actually, yeah, you can see that. You can see a lot better with your eyes, but considering you can see how red hot that is with the camera, shows it's pretty hot, and still not hot enough. So I'll have to come back to that. So, oh, that's better. I'll have to come back to that. Maybe use a different kind of heat source. I don't know. Should have worked, I guess. I mean, the propane tank goes up to nearly 2,000 degrees, so does see why I didn't. But I'll have to look into that and make another video. But for the time being, at least you got to see me be a dickhead. Wear gloves. Anyway, sign off after this, I guess. Not much point. If you liked some of the information, obviously only the information at the start was any good, but if you enjoyed the video, I guess comment, like, I guess. I'll just close off and I'll make another one, redo it, but till then, I suppose I'll see you in the next one. Remember, don't be a monkey.